Let's find out if Hyundai's new Tucson can go head-to-head with the mighty Mazda CX-5. Having driven it for several days now, I was hoping to tell you that the new Tucson is a pretty good SUV, but I can't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a good SUV if it's not, and it's definitely not good. Let's go back to the studio and I'll tell you why. I was really hoping to say, yeah, pretty good. Even more of the same from Hyundai, well done. Another good SUV. But this test drive experience was completely unexpected. I really didn't think they'd do that. Not now. I didn't think they had it in them. I thought pretty good must have been the plan. But that's not what they achieved. The new Tucson is not good, not by a long shot. And that's because it's friggin' excellent. New Tucson is actually a CX-5 killer. I know that's a big call, but here's why. When you throw a Hyundai Tucson into a NutriBullet and hit puree, forget antiquated notions like chewing, NutriBullet turns ordinary foods into superfoods by extracting the hidden vitamins and minerals at the cellular level. And if you believe that, how would you like to buy the Sydney Harbour Bridge? When you put a Tucson Highlander through this automotive cellular level goodness extraction process, it's just better than when you do the same thing with a CX-5 Akera. I actually did this, which involved a couple of very interesting telephone conversations at SUV test return time. The king is dead, and here's why. You know, the Tucson Highlander is $3,000 cheaper than a CX-5 Akera and every bit as well equipped. And in practice, you'd negotiate the price down to about 45 grand without having to go for your Glock. And at that price, it's the SUV Works Burger bargain of the decade. You might remember the CX-5 Akera pulled the pants down on these premium poverty Euro contenders, you know, like the BMW X1, the Audi Q3 and the Merc GLA. I reported on that and, frankly, earned the opprobrium of badge snobs everywhere. But that conclusion still stands. Tucson, though, in Highlander, it also therefore not just has the pleasure of German pants-down pulling, but it also enjoys the orgasmic frenzy of tarring and feathering the Germans and parading them along the high street with their ankles shackled in this undignified fashion. The new 1.6 turbo petrol engine, surgically extracted and transplanted from Veloster, it's a great fit in the new Tucson, and I really wasn't expecting that. It makes substantially more low RPM power than Mazda's 2.5 SKYACTIV petrol engine. In fact, the Tucson makes more power from 1500 RPM all the way up to at least 4000 RPM, and we know that definitively from the stated peak performance figures. Although the Mazda would probably still set a lap record if you managed to drive it like you stole it. The proof of the pudding here is actually in the driving, and at all the revs at which you are likely routinely to drive those vehicles, it's Tucson leading Mazda comfortably. Rubbing salt into the wounds here, a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission in the Tucson is much better for having a serious go-in than the 6-speed auto in the Mazda. Although the Mazda has more transmission refinement in some low-speed driving situations as a consequence of it being a conventional auto. So what you need to do is, you need to choose here, low-speed civility or direct driving engagement. There's a clear bias towards one or the other, and you get to choose. So that's nice. Handling's good too. You get brilliant local suspension tuning by the team at Hyundai Oz and their unnamed but very capable suspension tuner. The setup is excellent for our conditions, and you get just the right amount of roll and compliance for this kind of car. So if you want a reasonably refined taxi for mum and the kids, but which Dad can also enjoy having a go in from time to time, this is an ideal package to suit both of those agendas. I don't normally comment on styling, except where there's a tangible observation, because you've got eyes and you can perv as effectively as me. Although I am an A-grade pervert. Absolutely, top shelf. In any case, styling is often in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, how many times have you seen a hot chick arm in arm with a complete card-carrying numpty? But there is a salient styling observation here. When you park a Tucson next to a CX-5, it makes the CX-5 look immediately old and busted, even though Mazda did a pretty good job with the 2015 CX-5 facelift, especially on the interior. Speaking of which, cover up the badges and jump into each vehicle. Which SUV do you suppose might be easier to pass off as a prestige European SUV in this badge-deprived state? If you just answered CX-5, you'd be dead wrong. Hyundai's done a brilliant job on the interior, which was where the outgoing iX35 fell down most heavily. iX35 had the world's worst twin binnacle instrument canopies, a hideous notched transmission selector, half-baked at best in so many ways on the inside. I never even bothered reviewing iX35. My review was essentially, go buy yourself a CX-5 instead. It was a flashback to the underdone and yet trying too hard old South Korean automotive design model. Tucson's interior, however, is an automotive ergonomic triumph. You know, the air conditioning controls, the centre LCD, brilliant packaging of the transmission selector with electronic park brake and sundry other driver selectable features like the park sensors and centre diff lock behind that. Just fantastic. And in particular, the steering wheel. That wheel is fundamentally awesome. Good to look at, better to use. It's the next generation of Hyundai steering wheel, and I can't wait, frankly, until that's adopted right across the range. Huge step forward. The clarity of the GPS sat-nav display in particular rates a special mention, as does the inclusion of Apple CarPlay and TuneIn radio, although obviously the only station you'd ever need or want is Sydney's original 2UE 954, clearly. CarPlay does, of course, channel Siri through the high-tech Ouija board we know today as Bluetooth. Just don't get into this situation. Open the pod bay doors, please, Siri.
I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea?
Although you took very thorough precautions against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
I'm sure they have Siri in hell. Must ask Joseph Ratzinger next time we catch up at the Vatican. He'll know, and he's never wrong. Ask around. Don't get me wrong, CX-5 is still a great SUV, and there are plenty of reasons to own one. But Tucson's the one with the 5-year warranty, the cap price servicing for life, and the full-sized alloy spare wheel and tyre. Mazda cannot match that. And Tucson also lacks Mazda's hateful iStop system, so that's a plus. Frankly, it's a pretty close-run race, two very high-quality vehicles. But there's no need to go to the video referee. The Tucson is well in front. The stupidest thing about Tucson Highlander is, despite having all the requisite hardware, like the radar sensor up the pointy end used for autonomous emergency braking and other cool technology, there is no adaptive cruise control. So it's steam-powered Dickensian cruise control for the Tucson Highlander, and on this point, the Mazda CX-5 Akera is clearly in front. It's a crazy, incomprehensible decision from Hyundai, completely nutty. Hyundai's response about why this obvious feature is absent is, disingenuously, it's not available globally. It leaves me wondering if the time or the budget beat them to market, because they could have always simply just made a telephone call to Bosch. Tucson poses some interesting internal problems for Hyundai, however. It's better equipped and nicer than Santa Fe, and Santa Fe's good. Santa Fe has carryover liabilities with the left footrest, for example, which was always compromised by the low angle required to facilitate the manual park brake pedal in the active model and also the predecessor. And that's unfortunate as well as uncomfortable for long trips. The kicker here with Tucson is roughly 10 grand cheaper than Santa Fe spec for spec. Let's not forget that. Hyundai's taking some steps to level that playing field on specs with a minor model upgrade for Santa Fe planned in October 2015. Of course, if you really need 7 seats, Santa Fe or the Kia Sorento, it's pretty impressive too. Some people though will buy a Santa Fe not for the extra 2 seats, but because they claim they need a bigger SUV. So let's examine that objectively. Santa Fe is 21.5 centimetres longer. That's about 8.5 inches for 10 grand. In terms of maximum storage space, with all the seats stowed, Santa Fe offers about 1/7 of a cubic metre more storage. That's like 2 office filing boxes. And there's only 1.25 inches, 30 millimetres, more stretch between the wheelbase with Santa Fe, which is hardly a gulf. And since the people in rows 1 and 2 sit essentially between the wheels, there's really no more passenger space on offer in Santa Fe, at least in rows 1 and 2. To me, and I like Santa Fe, 10 grand seems to be a lot to pay for a few inches and 2 boxes, if you're paying just for the additional size. Anytime you disturb a system, you get feedback. You make a positive change like adding Tucson to the market of medium SUVs, so that's good. But the feedback, at least back at the Hyundai mothership, is going to be giving people who would have formerly purchased a Santa Fe because it was so clearly ahead of the iX35, a real reason to save 10 grand and purchase a Tucson instead. Tucson means Santa Fe is no longer a no-brainer. There's a real case for some buyers to save 10 grand. Good for you, bad for Hyundai. Oh well. Couple of caveats before I let you go. The Mazda 2-litre Atmo engine in lesser CX-5s is slightly underpowered and slightly lower in peak torque than Hyundai's equivalent 2-litre. They both have direct injection, but it is really a close-run thing. Mazda's in front on power from its 2.2 diesel versus Hyundai's 2-litre diesel. There's 5% in it there, as well as 5% in peak torque. As for the Nissan Qashqai and X-Trail, Mitsubishi ASX and Outlander, Kia Sportage and Subaru Forester, they can just about see CX-5 and Tucson duking it out for the yellow jersey way up ahead. If you want one of these second-string SUVs, make sure you drive the CX-5 and the Tucson at the same price point, and then identify exactly what it is about your second-line SUV that makes it a better option after throwing your specific situation and preferences into the mix. Everyone's different, and there could be a good reason to choose one of these second-string SUVs. But now it's time for some tough lovin'. What? No, I said tough lovin', not prison lovin'. If you think you want the Rip Van Winkle of SUVs that Honda calls the CR-V, or the aptly named Holden Craptiva, or the absolutely not death-proof Volkswagen Tiguan, or a little something to scare the kiddies into eating their veggies or something, like the Skoda Yeti, or any of the market's 20-something other SUV backmarkers, talk to a trusted healthcare professional about changing prescriptions. Because the meds you're on, clearly, they're not working. As always, if you want a new car at the right price, contact me online at autoexpert.com.au. Getting some pretty good discounts on Tucson right now. Don't forget to subscribe for regular updates and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'm John Cadogan. Thanks for watching.